Hello everyone, thanks for joining us for the Superintendent's Report. I'm Carol Birdsong, and joining me for our conversation is Williamson County Schools Superintendent Jason Golden. We are going to talk about the November Williamson County Board of Education meeting and some other important information that you need to know as we actually end the first semester. I know it's a few weeks away, but as we record this, we're winding down the first semester of the school year. Can you believe it?
We're at the very end of November. For students, they're thinking about exams.
Yes.
December 16th is our last student day. And then teachers and staff will work on December 19th, which is a Monday, and it will be the winter holiday, Christmas, New Year's, all those great times.
Yes, yes. And but before we get to that, we are going to talk about last night's school board meeting. And we had so many celebrations. It's always so fun to look back. What was really neat is Dr. Ann Gordon, who is the principal of Grassland Elementary School, was actually in the audience last night, and we recognized Grassland Elementary School for being a national Blue Ribbon School. So I think we're up to 15 total in our district, and it was great to honor Dr. Gordon and her staff last night.
It was really great to celebrate the National Blue Ribbon School with Grassland Elementary School, and you mentioned it's the 15th for WCS. In the time I've been superintendent, we've had a number of those as well. And Grassland had their most recent celebration with their faculty before school started one morning just a couple of weeks ago, after they had come back from Washington, D.C. to celebrate with everyone. They have just a few representatives who can go to Washington, D.C. for those celebrations. And Carol, I tell a story that I know you sometimes roll your eyes about, but to me it brings home the importance of the National Blue Ribbon Award. When I was in high school, outside of Atlanta, Georgia, our school was named a National Blue Ribbon Award winner. Just a few years ago, I was in town and I drove past my school and they still had that out front. It is a significant award. It may be the biggest award a school can get, and it really defines excellence. And so for us to have 15, Grassland Elementary being our most recent school named a National Blue Ribbon Award winner, is a really big deal for educators. So we were thrilled for Dr. Gordon and her faculty and staff to win that award.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those awards that just stays with you.
That's right.
Forever and ever. Another thing that's very close to my heart, another celebration is by the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. It's their National Student Production Awards. And this is where our media, our TV production students are competing against those from across the country. These are the folks, NATAS is what we call them, they put on the Emmy Awards. So at that level, you have to think that level. We had a recent Franklin High graduate, Graham Wynn, he just graduated this past year. This is how the awards fall. Franklin High School, Carrie Thompson is his teacher, won in 2 categories. Now, there aren't that many categories, and Graham won in nonfiction short form and as best director. That is so impressive, and I would encourage anyone who's watching, if you go look at our In Focus newsletter and pull that up, we have a link there to the work that he did, and it was a very personal story for him. It dealt with mental illness and suicide, and which is such an important topic to be discussed at this time, as we all know. And it's just so well done, and so congratulations to his work. I know we're going to see him in the future as well. Also, from Ravenwood High School, Olivia Freeman and Ella Ridlin won the National Award for Best Commercial. So a lot of national attention is coming to our district, to our students and schools and staff, because we have Dr. Pam Vaden from Ravenwood won the principal of the year for the state of Tennessee, and I'm going to have to cheat and look from the National Association of Secondary School Principals. She won that award. So, and then I'll stop, I promise, on national awards shortly. Bryson Boone from Page High won the National Future Farmers of America Convention's Agri-Science Fair Social Science Division V champion he was. And so what a wide range of different national competition and areas to be recognized in.
You know, you talked about Graham Wynn and the incredible achievement of winning 2 awards and the importance of the content of what he produced. When you talk about the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, I had to look at your notes as well for that. I really think about the professional work you've done over the course of your career in supporting our media programs at all our high schools. That's been something that's been very important to you for years, and when you present those awards, those national awards at our board meetings, it's just fun to see that. The effort that our professionals go into for our college and career technical education programs, it makes me so proud when we see those national awards. But the national awards are just evidence of the quality of what we're doing on a daily basis. So it's fun to get those awards, but what we're doing for students, opening those doors for students, so many stories that we have from students who were able to go to college or straight into the workforce with scholarships, with that professional skill. It's just amazing to me. You know, our vision statement says that Williamson County Schools will provide a supportive environment that challenges students to excel in academics, athletics, and the arts, and that's one indicator of that. At our board meetings, we only celebrate state and national awards, and at our board meetings, every month, we're celebrating something, and that tells me a lot about the professionals who work for WCS. It tells me a lot about the students and the quality of work that they're producing with our support.
It's one of my most favorite things that I get to do is celebrate our students and our staff. So let's talk about the athletics that we celebrated last night. Brentwood High School, their girls cross country team, state champion. From Nolensville High School, we had an individual, Claire Stegall, individual girls state champion. And then in soccer, Page High dominated yet again. The girls soccer won there. And we have to give a shout out to the Page High football team because they're competing this weekend for the state championship. Friday night, I think you're going to be there. Friday night at 6 or
Friday night at 6 Central, the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, UTC, or CHAT, for those who really know the school, is hosting the state championships. I think this is their second year hosting, and TSSAA, of course, puts those championship games on. Page High School's football team played in the state championship game last year, and so it's really exciting to know that they're going back again for another run. It's been a great run for Page High School. Seeing those students compete, those student athletes compete. You know, last year I was talking to Katie Hill, Dr. Hill, the principal at Page High School, and when she talked about that team, she talked about those young men as people, those young men as students, those young men and how they supported their classmates. It's just a great leadership program that continues and perpetuates itself because of their coaching, because of the quality of young men who commit to excellence.
Go Patriots! Bring home that trophy.
And Carol, you mentioned the girls cross country, and you mentioned Miss Stegall and her winning the state championship as well. We've been committed to Title IX for a long time, and we've had a lot of success.
You're going to have to explain what Title IX is.
We've had a lot of success in girls' sports.
Okay.
25, 30 years ago, and I'm trying to remember, actually it's longer than that now. I think I can't remember the year that Title IX's been celebrated, but a lot of the sports media national programs have been celebrating anniversaries for Title IX. Some of you who may be watching this think back to the time where girls didn't have sports in school. We committed to it early, and we continue to be committed to it, and to see our students succeed and have those opportunities after high school is a great thing to see. I got to mention one other thing related to that.
Okay.
One of my favorite activities that I've seen introduced in the last few years is flag football. Just last year, we introduced the girls flag football program in the spring. We made sure that its schedule aligned with softball so that students could participate in both. We had support from the Tennessee Titans for that program. They've actually committed to 2 years of funding girls flag football as an experimental sport through our state association, TSSAA. We did it internally. Every one of our comprehensive high schools had a team last year. They ended up competing in the Titan Stadium for the championship.
Great experience for them.
And we'll be hitting our second year of that. We know that Clarksville, Montgomery, and Metro Nashville, Davidson County schools, MNPS as we call them, they are going to be competing as well this coming year in year 2, again with support from the Titans. And seeing that expansion of girls' sports, additional opportunities for girls has been great. Seeing the support from professional football programs to help out in that way has been super for our community, and I'm so proud of their work in expanding that even beyond us. And I foresee a great future for that sport in Tennessee.
It's now spreading across the country too, so
right.
there are programs popping up across the country in that regard. I have one more group that we need to celebrate. We had about more than 30 students who were named to the Tennessee Music Education Association All-State Choir, and love our choir programs as well. And so, congratulations to all those students as well.
We talked about academics, athletics, and the arts in our vision statement. I'm so glad that you mentioned the arts.
Well-rounded for sure.
And you know, we have those celebrations even now in the middle of the school year in November. So it was great to see all those students. Centennial had 2 pages worth.
2 slides.
And that wasn't the only school who had
Yeah.
two slides worth of students who were selected to the All-State Choir. Carol, you may not know this, but last night during our board meeting, there was an honors orchestra performance for Williamson County Schools. It happened to be that the orchestra performance was scheduled the same night as the board meeting. We missed it, but we've introduced orchestra programs over these last few years as we continue to work on giving students opportunities in athletics, academics, and the arts. I've heard good things about that already from last night.
I'm sure that's always fun to see those students, because they are so good. Let's talk board meeting. Let's get into just some things that folks need to know about. Probably rezoning, or I'm not even going to say rezoning, establishing zone lines. We have 2 new schools, 2 new elementary schools that will open for the next school year, and so those zone lines were established last night by the board. Can you just give us a broad stroke of the zoning action that the board took last night?
Sure. I'm going to step back a little bit. We actually have 2 schools in Williamson County schools, 2 of our 50 that actually don't have zones. That's Renaissance High School and Vanguard Virtual. Every other school is set on a geographic zone, and we provide transportation. So the key to our zoning is transportation. We need to make sure that our bus service can get students to their school. That's number 1. Second, we have school capacity. It's pretty apparent to anyone. There's a limit on how many students can fit in each school. We're in a growing area, and so when schools get overcrowded, we try to figure out how do we address that. What we know here in Williamson is we are building new schools. We are growing so fast that we are building new schools. We have 2 new elementary schools that are scheduled to open next year. One is in the Spring Hill area, and one is in the east-southeast portion of the county. And those are under construction right now. We're setting a zone for each of those new schools. Right now, we don't have names for those schools. We've been calling it Wilkes Lane and Cox Road because those are the roads where they're being built. But we needed to establish the zone so that we could get the PTOs set up, so that students would know what schools they're going to, so that we can get a name, mascot, etc. We have principals appointed to those schools already.
And let's just say Jill Justice is going to be is the principal of the school located on Wilkes Lane. And
Amanda Fuller is the principal at
Cox Road.
At Cox Road. And both of those principals have experienced great leaders at our elementary schools. They left their work from other schools just this
in
year
Williamson County.
in Williamson County, and they've already started the process of opening up a new school. It's complicated, it's detailed, but we've done it a number of times and we're excellent at it. So they'll be starting that process of getting their community involved. Their next steps include naming the school, setting up a committee, make a recommendation to the board to name those new schools. So I'm very excited for them. Our board approved those zones. And I tell you, sometimes rezoning is hard. And you mentioned these are establishing new school zones, but students get moved from one school to another. In high growth areas, sometimes students get moved more than once over the course of their career, and that's what folks experience. So we have excellence in our instructional program, and people are moving in large part because of that. We hear that from the Chamber of Commerce, Williamson Inc. regularly, and as part of that, we build. And so the board went through that difficult process, made the vote last night to establish those school zones. We actually had a 2-month process. We handled that a little bit differently from how we've done it in the past. We proposed 3 alternatives and had a discussion 2 months ago with our board, and then we went to the community and we got input from the community and our board members and made final recommendations based on the input to the board. And we went through that difficult process, but I tell you that process went really well because we were able to hear our community. For example, the Cox Road School is in an area that's experiencing very high growth. We opened Creekside Elementary School just a few years ago, and it's already at capacity. And we have kindergartners who have not yet finished school who started at Creekside but are already in an area where it's grown so fast their school is full. So we included in this decision some additional grandfathering for families who would have been rezoned twice, so that if they choose, they can stay at that school that they are leaving. Now we have limits on our transportation capacity.
Right.
We're short on bus drivers as it is, and so we're not able to provide transportation outside a school zone. But if somebody wants to stay, they have that capacity. There's an application process. So I felt like it was important to let folks know.
Right.
If you have been rezoned and the board voted to allow that grandfathering, this spring you will need to make that choice and submit an online form related to that. And we'll be communicating more about that over time. But we're excited. One key for us is every school in Williamson County is going to be excellent. What we often hear from folks is, I don't want to move there, but then when they move because of growth, they say, I don't want to leave because of the supports we have. So we've opened those 2 new schools. I do want to mention also, Nolensville is growing really fast. We actually are doing a rezoning right now because we had 2 schools that were overcrowded. Nolensville Elementary is overcrowded and Mill Creek Middle School is overcrowded. And next door, a few miles away, there is some capacity currently at Sunset Middle School and at Sunset Elementary and at Jordan Elementary. So the board voted on an additional rezoning in the Nolensville area to address that. And so there will be some changes in Nolensville as we balance that out.
And all of the information is up on our website. So if you go to wcs.edu, you go to buses and zoning, you can find all of the detailed information to see if you were affected or not. I do want to clarify one thing. There was some misinformation about high school rezoning out there, and no high school rezoning took place last night.
Well, 2 months ago, we actually proposed that the board consider a possible rezoning. We projected Independence High School is going to be overcrowded in about 2 years. Because the board was looking at some substantial rezoning now, we sent a proposal to them for them to consider. As a result of community feedback and their feedback, we decided not to make a final proposal for a rezoning of Independence High School at this time. But we want everyone to know it's growing. We have already expanded Independence's capacity by 400 students just a few years ago, and it's already full. That will be coming in a couple of years, but we did not make a final proposal, although it was discussed at our community meetings.
But just to be clear, no high school rezoning, that will take effect for next year.
That is correct.
Okay. All right, let's talk about strategic plan. It's time for a new one. The last time we did this was 5 or 6 years ago, and it was a 7-year plan. Is that right?
That's correct. We had a plan for a 7-year strategic plan. Does that make sense? A plan for a plan. We've been going through a 7-year strategic planning process. We have met so many of those goals about 5 years in that we determined, and I spoke to the board about this, it's time for us to do another strategic plan. We're going to be about a year ahead of where we thought we would be. That's a good thing. Mm-hmm. Also, there have been so many changes.
Yeah.
Of course, you don't want to talk about COVID, but that put so many more tools in our toolbox. It had such an impact on our community. There've been a lot of changes. So we're
in that we implemented students having a Chromebook earlier than we had planned.
Well, that's right. As an example, we had a goal for all students to have a device, and we jumped ahead on that particular goal. Mm-hmm. In instruction, we have improved instruction by leaps and bounds compared to what we projected 5-6 years ago. So we're going through a new strategic planning process. We had a small committee led by Rick Wimberly, who's one of our board members. Had some staff members on there, Dr. Julie Oyer, who leads our elementary schools. You were actually on the committee, and then Gary Anderson, who has a lot of educational experience, who was one of our operational directors, to make a recommendation for a strategic planning facilitator. You all went through a process, vetted a number of providers, and ultimately landed on a recommendation that Lipscomb University help me lead,
yes.
Facilitate.
Yes,
our
it is one of your goals to have a new strategic plan and that. But we did, as we have in the past 2 times we've gone through that, we've had a facilitator, and so I think that's important to bring somebody from the outside in to help navigate.
I know many of our parents are involved in corporate leadership, and from a corporate perspective, we're large. Our annual budget's over $480 million. We have over 5,000 employees. We have 50 sites. It is a major project for us, and having a professional facilitator is a key to that. When we want our community input, that was one item that was mentioned last night at our board meeting repeatedly, making sure that we have community input, stakeholder input, in our strategic planning process is very important to us. We had that success 5 or 6 years ago, and we set really good goals. Community-based, community-driven goals that we were able to achieve. We talk about SMART goals, and we also talk about stretch goals. And we want to make sure that we have all those based on what our community values and what our community needs. And Carol, I think back to 30, 40 years ago when so many of our community leaders decided that education was going to be a focus in Williamson County. And I've been here 17 years, and I think back about the people who were here before me. We know the importance of opening those doors for our students, being a leader in high quality instruction. Our vision statement drives it, and we want our community to help us continue that excellence.
Very good.
So we're going to be.
Okay.
It's funny. We were both about to say that thing. I'm going to let you say when we're starting.
Okay. Really, the majority of the work will take place next semester. And so I encourage everybody, if you are not reading In Focus, please subscribe. You can do that right from our website, and we will be communicating community meeting times, other information. Really, that's going to be our main tool. We'll use also the district website, school websites, to also push out that information, because it's very, very important that all voices are heard. And we talk about this all the time. Current parent, former parent, community member. We want everybody involved and engaged in Williamson County schools. That's important.
Well, when we use the term stakeholders, which is a common term in a lot of professional work, everyone in our community somehow, some way is a stakeholder. Parents, students, grandparents, business leaders, anyone who lives in this community is somehow affected by the schools. Our hope and expectation is that in all that, it's a positive impact. And so we do want to hear from everyone.
Looking forward to working with Lipscomb. I think it's going to be a very smooth and nice and informative process. One other item I want to discuss based on the November school board meeting is the 5-year capital improvement plan. This is something that we put together every year. It is a fluid document, and based on our growth, it does change. Talk about the 5-year improvement plan and what that means.
If you're going to experience sustained long-term success, you need to think strategically. One element of that on the capital side is we have a 5-year capital plan. We let our county commission, our funding body, know a projection of what we expect we'll need for building, construction, for technology support, for repairs, for transportation long-term with our 5-year capital plan, and we do it annually. So we have columns identifying what we project we're going to need in year 1, all the way out to year 5. And you're correct, it's fluid because the first year is a lot more easy to predict than year 5.
Yeah.
The county commission in turn uses that as they project. Often they go to the bond market for funding some of these schools. Big ticket items, multi-million-dollar projects, 25 million plus, and growing in expense just for our smaller projects. Our high schools can be $110 million. These are very large projects. We need to be thoughtful in the planning process. So our board voted in November and approved that 5-year capital plan. The commission is going to review it and make a decision on that in January. That in turn affects their bond rating, so that we can be good stewards of the funds that we have in dealing with growth. And Carol, I want to mention this. I do have long-term concerns about the funding as we grow. The structure that we have in Tennessee puts a pretty heavy burden on county governments for supporting growth. Largely, county governments depend on property tax. Because property tax values are growing, our county commission has been able to maintain a relatively low property tax rate compared to many of our neighbors in Tennessee. But with the success comes growth, and they have that responsibility to fund how we address growth. The work they do is hard, and we appreciate the teamwork that they've given our school board in that. Our school board identifies the needs and identifies the expenses, and in working with the county commission has to determine how they fund that. They've been creative, they've been thoughtful, they've been long-term planners on how to address that, and this is one of those tools we use for that.
Very good. As we wrap it up, I want to talk about inclement weather, because it is becoming that time of year when we might get some snow, we might get some ice. I don't know. We've had wind events, various things, but there are some times where we have to close school. We do have 10 days built into our calendar for snow days, because if you have just moved here from other parts of the country, you may not realize that we really don't invest in snow removal equipment, and we do have a lot of hills and peaks and valleys, hills, that sort of thing, throughout Williamson County. It's not just in one area of the county that lead us to close schools, because we want to be able to transport our children safely.
Well, you mentioned we don't invest, and we being the state,
That's
right?
it, yes.
So our highway department does have trucks, and they work on, in those rare times when snow comes, they work on keeping the roads open as much as they can, but it's a process. Compared to the northern states where it's a routine over the course of months, it happens rarely, so it's not wise to put in that kind of investment. And so we do have snow days. As often as not, they're ice days, yes, which is a whole different ballgame as well. And for those of you who may be new, in our community here in Williamson County, Carol Birdsong is a pretty famous voice for about a generation of students. Carol typically makes the calls when we have to close for inclement weather.
I make the phone, let's clarify that. I make the phone call. I don't close school.
Don't make the decision.
I don't make the decision to close school.
So ultimately, that's my decision. We have a team. We have spotters go out, our transportation department. Jeff Fuller is the director there. He actually goes out with some spotters from that department. Our safety department is involved. We use the sheriff's department, emergency management. It's a whole team effort to determine, can we get our buses through their routes based on the weather at the time. And it's about that bus transportation. Driving a bus is very different from driving a car.
Yes, it is.
Driving a bus in one part of the county that's up and down hills is very different from somebody who lives right next to the interstate. So we often go through that. We have to evaluate the whole county. So there are times where we have inclement weather days. That first inclement weather day is an exciting time for students historically. It's a stressful time for us because we have to make that decision based on student safety. So we do let folks know about this time of year. It could come, and we remind them about that inclement weather time.
And so if you are a parent, you will get a phone call, you'll get a text message, you're going to get an email. We're going to post it on our website. And we will use all of our social media tools. That is going to be, we'll post on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. We use all the tools that we can. And through local media, they're good about helping us also communicate that. So one thing that I know you've worked on is if we can possibly make the call the night before, you try to do that, because we do realize that folks may need childcare or have to make different arrangements.
Well, that's right. We work on weather projections, right? And everyone knows about the efforts of meteorologists, et cetera. If it's very apparent trouble's coming, we try to make that call in the evening, usually by the proverbial 10 o'clock news, right, which is the traditional time here.
But we really do try to call by 9.
That's right. And it takes some time for our notices to cycle through once we enter it into the system. That's our goal. It's not a guarantee. Sometimes we can be surprised. There are occasions where we actually might need to close school in the middle of a school day because we project something's going to come out before our bus routes get completed. Generally speaking, our buses are finishing around 5 o'clock. Especially after dark this time of year, it could be even a little bit later. And so we know that there's always a possibility that something might happen in an emergency situation. But generally speaking, we hope to make that call that evening, but there's no guarantees because the unpredictability of Tennessee weather. This is probably true for many parts of the country, but there's an old saying in Tennessee, if you don't like the weather, just wait, it'll change tomorrow. Something along those lines. That's what we work through this time of year. Now, you mentioned that we have 10 weather days built in. The Tennessee structure is that you can go extra time each day over the course of the school year so that you can build in those weather days, and that's what we do.
Okay, very good. So parents, make sure your contact information is updated in Skyward, because that is what goes into our notification system, that data. So that's it for us. We don't have any school board meetings in the month of December. So we will not do this program in December. We will come back in January after the next school board meeting.
The Williamson County School Board does not have on its schedule a December meeting. Likewise, the Williamson County Commission, who is our funding body, does not have a December schedule for obvious reasons. There's usually a 2-week or so window of time where folks are experiencing holidays, and it's just a gesture to the community. And so we do a little extra work in November that we've talked about, and we'll be doing a little bit extra public work in January as well to catch up.
Okay, sounds good. So that's it for us. And as we conclude this semester, we hope that you all have safe and happy holidays, and go Patriots.